to every public school student in New South Wales, I hope you're having a scholastic day, and to every, which is a very typical teacher thing to say, and to every school community, I hope you're doing well, and to every public school teacher in this state, thank you for your work, as particularly over the last few years, but always, and recognise that absolutely historic pay rise that this government, with our support, was able to give you, and we'll continue that work in terms of pay and conditions. Madam Speaker, I also want to give a shout out to Senator Penny Allman-Payne, Greens Senator, for her incredible work on the federal funding, which is a very complex, unfortunately, it's a very complex thing, but her work, and also, of course, the New South Wales Teachers Federation, of which I'm a proud and current member for over 20 years, and of course the Australian Education Union, and their tireless work in this space. Madam Speaker, public education is the hallmark of free, quality, universal access to public education, is not just the hallmark of an advanced society, it is the cornerstone of progressive countries, and it is absolutely the greatest treasure. And I know there are plenty of school teachers, former school teachers in this room, in the chamber today, and indeed in this house and the other place. And we all know that teachers in schools, it is a vocation, it is a dedication to the learning of young people, and there is nothing, I believe, more precious than an education. But however, what we inherited at some decades ago, which was a thriving, well-funded system across the board, has today deteriorated. And the short version is, we used to believe in this country that every child had the right to a universally free public school education. We've heard from all the former judges and former prime ministers who had amazing public education, but then sadly gave in to lobbying by so-called independent private school lobbyists, that a right to choose suddenly took over the zeitgeist, and privately owned schools became not just a thing. I don't care. I have so much respect for private schools in my electorate and across the board, but public funding, no. Time went on and more federal money went to private schools, and then the states and territories were asked to pick up more of the tab. And that brings us to today. While some private schools in New South Wales may fret over delivering new swimming pools and $12 million theatres, public schools face different challenges, like working in classrooms and staff rooms that are not fit for purpose, struggling to buy enough textbooks, and literally scraping for pens and basic stationery. All of us remember what it's like, the negotiation to go and ask at the front office for a couple of extra pens. So when we see the overfunding and the overfunding of private schools and the underfunding, it really is beyond the pale. And Madam Speaker, as it stands, only 1.3% of public schools nationwide receive the government funding they're supposed to. Meanwhile, 98% of private schools receive excess funding. Excess funding. Governments underfund government schools, but we have an opportunity right now, which I will turn to, which is where we have a Labor government at federal level, we have Labor governments across the states and territories, and this is the opportunity to right the past. In 2011, with the review of funding for schooling, which was the Gonski review, whilst it's had its flaws, it set a minimum school resourcing standard, which we call the SRS. But due to the pressure of lobbyists, federal Labor at the time unfortunately lost their nerve, and out of this emerged a kind of Frankenstein funding arrangement where underfunded public schools were put on a pathway up to full funding, while overfunded private schools were put on a pathway down. And we find ourselves in an era of neglect. The Greens believe that federal funding for the school education should be on the basis of need and equity to ensure that all Australian children receive a world-class education. And Madam Speaker, Now, more than a decade on, we are in a position to right this wrong. And that is why I'm so pleased that we have the support of Labor. We have an incredible minister, Education Minister, I believe, in our current Education Minister, who is determined to see that children in our public schools in New South Wales will have the minimum resourcing standard, and then we can go from there. So I very much welcome the support of the House, and hearing from those in government and opposite valuing public education in this way.